Aiona told me something in this conversation that I haven't been able to shake. That in her family, in her culture, there's an old, quiet rule for what it means when somebody gets sick. That if it happened to you, you probably did something to deserve it. She spent the last several months trying to unlearn that rule in the middle of a stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis. This is her episode. Welcome to Changed by Cancer. I'm your host, Dr. Randy Painter. Quick reminder, I'm a cancer epidemiologist, but I am not your doctor or clinician. The conversations we have here are about personal experiences and systemic issues in healthcare. They are not medical advice. Please consult your own medical team for any health-related decisions. Today's guest is someone I've known for over 30 years. We met as 22-year-old missionary companions in Miami, Florida, back in 1991. We were companions for about 5 months, 24 hours a day. That's the way that particular assignment works. We kept in touch across 3 decades and 2 coasts, but until we sat down to record this, we hadn't actually been in the same room together in 34 years. She drove down from Petaluma to the San Francisco Bay Peninsula to do this interview with me. Her name is Aiona. She's 57. She came to California from Tonga when she was about a year old. She's a hotel manager, a wife, and a mother of 2 grown daughters. And several months ago, she noticed something different in her breast. Just FYI, I have my 2 dogs in here. They are very curious about Aiona.
Yeah, they're just keeping me, on the straight and narrow, I guess. So in November of last year, 2025, I noticed a lump, rather large lump on one of my breasts. And so that triggered I had been ignoring all of my boob squishing appointments because got too busy at work and whatever. And then so finally I went in and begged for it. Please, I really need to take a look at this. And so we did go and look at it, and then the doctors did say it does look pretty suspicious. It's rather large. So we had to go do the next step and do what do they call that when they poke it? So they did a biopsy and found out, yes, it was cancer, confirmed it was cancer, and that was scary. But at least it was good that we knew. And so I don't remember all of the verbiages of what it was diagnosed as, but all I know is that it was 11 centimeters by 4 centimeters, big. And they did say that it was stage 3. So, so it's pretty advanced, and so they said we had to get pretty quickly to try something pretty, like attack it as soon as we can. And then so I had to let my work know. I was like, you guys going to need to find someone to come and help or take over because I'm going to need to leave because of this is going on. So within a week, they were pretty good about helping me they got someone up pretty quickly in there. And so I was able to just stay home. And that's a blessing that I had worked at the company I worked for quite a while, 4 years. And so I had a good amount of like disability that I can pull from, and that's how we're able to survive right now. But yeah, that's kind of like where we're at now. Right now, I have one more chemo to go, and then they've already set my schedule for my surgery. I've asked for a double mastectomy because it's only on one side, but I don't want to have to deal with it again.
So I think you told me before that the cancer that you had was, so you have a stage 3 breast cancer that is hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative.
And there were a few. It wasn't just the one. There was one large one, but there's 3. And they said it has gone to some of my, what are those things called
lymph
here?
Nodes.
Lymph nodes. So they're worried that it's going to jump from lymph node to something else. So that's what, all this fun stuff going on. It was frustrating for me because going into it, I didn't feel sick.
I want to pause the conversation for a second and put some real context around what Aiona just said. I'm calling this the Epi Edit. It's a new thing I'm trying. Short breaks where I step out of the conversation and into the data, the policy, or the clinical piece behind what you just heard. A few of you told me you liked it when I started doing this informally in Brenda's episodes, so I'm making it an ongoing feature in interviews. And I'll also have standalone Epi Edit episodes starting July 8th. For now, here's the first one. So what Aiona's describing, 11 centimeters across multiple sites with lymph node involvement, hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative, is a fairly aggressive presentation. Stage 3 means the disease has moved into nearby tissue or lymph nodes, but it hasn't spread to distant organs. It's locally advanced, not metastatic. That distinction is everything. It's still considered a curable disease, which is part of why her team moved as fast as they did.
That was just kind of like my thing. I was in management for a Hampton Inn in Petaluma. Just one Hampton Inn. Anyways, so it was just work, always. And then with this, it was kind of fun to be like, I'm going to be off. But the thing is, though, and they already had told me too, like, but you're going to be sick. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm in Tonga. I don't get sick. Yeah, I do. Yeah, the treatment is really, no fun. No bueno. But that's how we, that's how we fight it. So we keep moving. I mean, with hospitality, you have to be on all the time. Especially because I'm in management, like usually when you're talking to someone, they have a problem. They don't have a towel. They don't have what? There's a need. And so usually it's easy to push away whatever problems of the day I have because they're usually not there. But in the beginning, there was still a lot of woe is me over, I freaking have cancer. You know what I mean? So everything would trigger, it could be anything. Someone would come up to me and say, if they're upset about something else, in the back of my head, I'm still trying to hash this out in the brain that I do have cancer. And so them coming, I can't, it was too hard to put up a facade of, hi, how are you? What can I do for you? How can I make your day better? I couldn't function at work, and there's no way I could have did it. Because even while I was, prior to me being able to come off, I had been, from diagnosis, I had worked about 2 weeks of knowing that something was up. And so just not even knowing, I would be in tears for free, just for no dang reason. You know what I mean? Like someone comes up to me, hi, how are you? How's your day? And, in the back of my brain, bloody horrible, in your brain, and so, so I'm glad. That is a blessing that I was able to take time off, because they would have probably had to fire me because I wouldn't have been able to be very effective in my work. It would have took a lot. I'm really happy because I do, when I go to the infusions, I hear people saying, oh, after this, I have to go to work. And I'm like, how can you function? So, and I see how they're, after having their transfusion, they're going in to work I'm just like, oh my gosh, you people are so strong. I'm just a weakling. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
I think you really hit the nail on the head there, that it's the nature of the work where if it's like really heavy in customer service and management and you're interfacing with people all day long and taking care of other people.
And I'm not like that at work. You know what I mean? So like, I don't like to show anyone when I'm having a hard time or whatever. And so for them to just see me like in the back part of the office, just like crying, and they're like, they have to stop what they're doing, give me a hug, like to calm me down. And I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. One of my daughters does work with me at my job. And so that's a tough, juggle too, because I don't know really how it really affects her. I think she kind of hides it from me if she's feeling, depressed about me being sick or whatever. And I just try to keep it like moving, like, it's okay. We're just, we're going to do our treatments. We're good. We're okay. I feel sick, but we're okay. My older daughter that helps me, I had her come back from school to kind of help me out. Says, Mommy's sorry, but right now I don't have the resources to take care of you at school and us here at home. So can you please come home and help take care of Mommy? So she does do that. She's like my naughty nurse, always bossing me around. Gosh, did you take your medicine? Did you do this? I'm like, anyways, but she has
from the best.
Oh my gosh. But she has shared with me that she's just afraid I'm going to die, So I'm like, and it's it's a real thing. It could happen, but hey, we don't know day to day. I could get run over by the stoplight or whatever. So tomorrow is really not promised. We don't know. But yeah, I know that it's hard on the family. So I'm married and I have 2 adult kids. I probably didn't share that, but I have a 23-year-old and a 22-year-old. I have one of my aunties, my uncle married this one woman who, she had really bad cancer, like very painful, like at the very end. It was really hard for her. Cancer is scary all over, but to have to go through that scares me. Like, I'm a wimp. I can't take that much pain. This woman's strong. She was able to, last for quite a while, actually. But for me, I think I have too much time on my hands sometimes, and I try not to let my brain go there, but I'm afraid of what if I do go, when sooner than I think, so we're getting up there in age. I'm 57. Not that they can't go on without me, but I don't want them to have to go on without me, and I know that's, my girls worry about that, and I'm sure my husband worries about it. And it's funny because we have conversations about it, and his whole thing is, I'm not going to get married again. I'm like, dude, you don't have to not get married again, But we have those conversations, and talking about death is, we talk about it more now, and before it was just like, oh, someday. But now it's kind of like, well, any day now. We never know. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Death and dying is a real thing. And so it's like, for me, both my parents are gone. And, both my grandparents are gone too. On both sides, my mom's side and my dad's side. I have one auntie left on one of my siblings for my my mom, she has one more sibling that's still alive. So my kids are able to have a grandma through her, and also my husband's parents. So they're able to have grandparents because they do still, as kids and even now as adults, they ask about my mom and my dad and how are they, and so now, so they know the feeling of not having, and so I think that their mind goes to like, well, what if mom's gone? My dad passed away. I was in my 30s already, and so with my mom, so I'm still a mess over that. So I guess I'm fearful that they're going to have a lot to deal with too if whenever that happens.
Did either of your parents have cancer? Or are you the first one?
I'm the first one in our line. One of my great aunts had it when she was like in her 60s. She was older. She got breast cancer and she passed away from complications from that. But it was in her 60s. I think she lived to 69. So wow. She was one of my, that's on my dad's side. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't have anyone in my family. I'm the first. No one talks about it because it's almost, and I think part of it is, I mean, and I think it might be like that in all cultures, maybe not, but it always felt like, oh, she deserves it. That's why she did something. That's why she got cancer. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, no wonder she got cancer. Because, you know what I mean? It was like something that person deserved. And this could be just me and my take on things, but I've heard it from aunties and, and uncles, and even just even talking amongst people that I know and love. And it's like, why would you say that? And even myself, I have been guilty of it. It's like, oh, that's why, So it'd be like, I mean, and it could be anything that they've done in their life, or even like, so say if someone was like a mean-spirited person, okay, right? Mm-hmm. And then they got cancer, right? Mm-hmm. So it's almost like, oh, well, that's why they got cancer, because God doesn't like that kind of, it's like, no, that's not why they got cancer. And we know in our brain that's not why, but it kind of is kind of like, yeah, that's kind of accepted. Like, people, I've been in conversation where we laugh it off. Yeah, you're right. That's why they got it, because they're horrible, or because they were this in their life, you know what I mean? Or whatever it was. And it's like, no one deserves it. No one went out trying to get it, So that's something that needs to be nipped in the bud, because, I think, and it's just also, and that also kind of became something in the way of me telling my own friends, because really, how do you start that conversation? Hi, I have cancer. The only ones that kind of knew at first that I did have, because I didn't really tell no one. And even if people ask what I'm doing, my husband will be talking to his, his family, and please don't tell anyone, because in my brain, people will say, well, she deserved it because XYZ. But I did reach out to like close friends and cousins of mine that had gone through it. I called one of my cousins. I was like, hey, so I understand, because I didn't know. I seen on Facebook that your girls, so one of my close cousins, she went through cancer, but she didn't really tell anyone. She didn't tell, but her daughters made like a whole almost like a birthday thing, and they said, mom survived breast cancer. So I think it was after she had her surgery, because she chose to have a double mastectomy, And then they had like, it was pink everywhere. And they had little, just little gifts that, that are for their mom, and just kind of celebrated with her that she got through this and she's strong and all that kind of thing. So I reached out to her because I saw that and I said, hey, and I kind of explained to her how I found out and what I'm currently going through. And we just kind of had like a teary conversation. Excuse me. It was kind of a hard conversation about, what I'm going through. And I asked her, how was it for you? And, and she shared with me all the things that helped her and some of the things that she heard from her own family and aunties that have gone through breast cancer like this. And we had a pretty long conversation about it. And so that was one of the conversations that helped me kind of like, better accept it and better gird up my loins to be like, we can do this,
I want to go back and ask just a couple more questions about like the whole kind of blame thing, right? Because I think that this is probably something that could be useful kind of towards your overall goal that we had talked about, which is, talking about the Pacific Islander aspect of this experience. With this idea of blame and maybe like a cultural specific aspect to it. Did you find yourself, I guess, not wanting to tell people because you were afraid of like what might be said?
Almost embarrassed, but almost like I did it to myself. Like, you know what I mean?
So so to an extent, you were believing.
And also that first kind of blame that you were talking about, that is kind of normal, where it's like, was there something that I did that made me get it? And I had that conversation with one of my oncologists. And then, I was kind of tearful about it. Like, is it something that I did? Is it? And then she was like, no, we're not playing that game. We cannot play that game.
It's just because you were a very bad person, Aiona. It's just simply that.
Shh, don't tell everyone. They know. But I mean, she was pretty adamant about letting me know that we can't play, we can't do that blame game, because she says, like, those cells could have been injured in any hundreds of thousands different kind of ways. Like, cause even growing up, like and it was something that my dad did, because he I think he had wanted to study to be a doctor, but he didn't have the opportunity to go away to study for that. And that's what I understand from hearing from, like, my dad's siblings, like, he wanted to be, and he kind of was like he ended up being like the Google doctor, but he did read up on things, and like he would read medical papers for fun. My whole life growing up, he was always, don't do that, it's going to cause cancer. Don't do that, it's going to cause cancer. And it was kind of always in my ear. Like, even sitting in front of the TV, it's like, how like kids sit, like the TV's right here. Yes. Oh no, we were not allowed. Well, Beck, you're going to get cancer, And we didn't have a microwave until like the 90s, because my dad said, it's going to cause cancer. And if I wore too much makeup, what is that? It's going to cause cancer. It was kind of, so maybe the blame thing, and I think my dad was just trying to, like, educate us. It's normal that a lot of people have that, kind of like connection with it. Like, I did something. It's my fault. I did it. But I mean, having a dad that you hear that from all the time, and then, but yeah, my oncologist was super cool about that. She was like, you cannot do that. We don't know what it is. It's like, this is what we know, and this is what we can do to, fight it. And they're going, right now for you, we are, our goal is cure. So the medicine that we're going through, the medicine that we are giving you is for cure. We still have we have hope for cure. So don't do the blame game. It's just going to cause you pain.
Quick epi edit here. I want to sit with that for a second because what Aiona's describing isn't exclusive to Tongan culture. Versions of this phenomenon show up across most cultures. There's a name for it: illness attribution. It's the instinct to find a moral cause for a random biological event, because a random biological event is terrifying, and a moral cause at least gives you something to do about it. It's the same psychological reflex behind just world thinking, the idea that bad things only happen to people who deserve them, because the alternative, that any of us could be next for no reason at all, is harder to sit with. Aiona's oncologist had the right instinct, shutting that narrative down clinically every time, because it doesn't just hurt the patient sitting in front of her. It's also exactly what keeps the next person from telling anyone they're sick at all.
I did what they said not to do because, anytime you get sick on anything, you don't want to be the Google doctor. Because I used to be okay, funny story too. When I had my kids, my first one, I'm in pain and I'm going to see the nurse first and, before you. So I'm crying my eyeballs out and I'm telling the nurse, I think I have placenta previa because my liver, then I forget which side I was pointing at, but my liver, it's hurts so bad. And, the nurse is like, okay, honey, I could already look at her face because I'm crying, can't stop. And she's telling me, honey, your liver is over here. She pointed to the opposite of whatever I was, at. And so it's not preeclampsia. And so, by the time the doctor came, it was kind of good thing I wasn't trying to tell the doctor what I had. And I still have to bite my tongue whenever I go to the doctor. And because I know they know better, but, Google doctor. I'm the Google doctor. But I read something that cancer is actually the highest killer of Polynesian women. I mean, even what do you call it? Being overweight and diabetes and stuff, that's still a thing. But cancer is the biggest killer of Polynesian women. Yeah. It's I don't know the percentage, but it was pretty high. With health things, health, it's totally different two different kinds of, most Polynesians are overweight. Not all of them, just there's a big number of us that are. And then we just have different, I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe it is kind of the same, you know what I mean? But I mean body wise, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just a different habitus, a different body composition.
Right. And so but I found that cancer is still a pretty big I believe it said it was number one. It did say that diabetes and being overweight, that kind of thing, is also big up there. But I think it was still number one. And then, because really, I forget the number of the makeup of the Polynesian, and that's and they put all the Samoan, Tongans, Tahitians, Hawaiians. I think even Fijians are put together in that too, I believe. And other islands. Right. But I mean, I think of the population, I think it's less than 2%, or is it 0.02%? I don't remember the actual number, but it's when you consider how many millions of people in the world, we're only I want to say 0.02% of the whole mankind makeup. Mm-hmm. And so that small group also is, having a time with cancer. So that's kind of, I think that's something that we need education on. Mm-hmm. And then I in my Google research, mm-hmm. I found that one of the big things that causes cancer is, just being obese, that can cause cancer. And I'm like, I never knew that.
Okay, epi-edit time. And this one's a big one. Aiona is more right than she even knows. And I want to give her real numbers because this is exactly the kind of thing this show exists to dig into. First, her math. Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders are usually estimated at around 0.4% of the U.S. population. A little bigger than her guess, but she's not far off. It's a genuinely tiny population in a country of over 330 million people. And that's exactly the problem. For decades, federal health data lumped Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders in with the broader Asian American category. It's a category that includes dozens of ethnic groups with very different cancer risks, immigration histories, and access to care. When you average a Tongan woman's data in with a Japanese woman's data and a Chinese woman's data, the disparities specific to Pacific Islanders disappear into the average. Researchers call this masking. It took well into this decade before the federal mortality data were reliably separated out for this population. And once they were, the picture was stark. A 2023 study in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute found that Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders between the ages of 20 and 49 have the highest cancer death rate of any racial or ethnic group in that age range in the entire country, higher than white, Black, Asian, Latino, or American Indian and Alaskan Native populations of the same age. And here's the part that's specific to Aiona. Breast cancer, not lung cancer, which is the leading cancer killer for many other Asian American subgroups, is the leading cause of cancer death for Samoan, Guamanian, and Filipino women. And 5-year survival for breast cancer, specifically among Tongan women, has been measured at somewhere around 72 to 74%. For white women, it's 93%. That gap is not biology. Aiona's tumor type, hormone receptor-positive, HER2 negative, usually has a good prognosis. The disease isn't inherently more lethal in Tongan women. What's different is how late it's typically caught, how far people have to travel for specialists, how little material exists in the appropriate language, and exactly the kind of community silence Aiona has been describing to me. She asked in this conversation for someone to bring cancer education into Pacific Islander community spaces, the way her own community already brings in education about diabetes, citizenship, and politics. The data back up exactly why that matters.
I do, whenever I look at my sources, I do see where is it coming from. Because, I did a little IT certificate when the kids were little. And, the big thing that they, it was funny because we had a class on the internet. One thing that stuck in my brain was when you are doing your research and, make sure it is a good, thing. So even things like I learned from that, like when you go to Google, if you put google.edu, then you'll get all the things that are from, college sources and universities and science-based kind of things, so know where you're going, because sometimes you can, get a random, Google will pull it up, but, it could be a quack or whatever, something that's, not going, maybe not so much, So with, using the interwebs, I try to be careful because I'm, I still remember when we had no interwebs.
Have you been offered any sort of counseling, group therapy, emotional support? Have you taken them up on that?
I haven't. I just didn't follow through with them to be like, because they did tell me about, other online like groups, or there are even some in-person groups that you can go to and whatever. And I'm like, I'm more private. I mean, I don't want to be like, I already cry all the time anyways, and I don't want to go cry in front of strangers, you know. So I'm kind of private on that kind of thing. So I didn't think it would help me. So I didn't take them up on that, on like that part of it. But they did also, you know, say that there is also like mental health kind of help that they can offer. And I may ask them more about that too. And they said, I think even for the family as well, not just for me. They did in the beginning try to get me a navigator, you know, to kind of like navigate through all the things that I might have questions on. And then I just never got back to her because like I was kind of bombarded with all of the different appointments, and they all kind of like, so I just kind of had to make a calendar and like figure out all that. On my first group of treatments, I forget the name of that drug. They call that one the Red Devil, whatever it was. That one it was every other week, but that was horrible. I just couldn't eat. And that, for someone who loves to eat, that's like torture. Because everything you do eat just tastes like cardboard. It's like, what's the point? And then it makes you feel sick. And then, you know, all the things, you know, that we hear about around, around cancer treatment. And so I was so horrible and like sick to my stomach and in bed all the time that my husband was like, oh, well, maybe you just tell them you don't want it anymore. Just tell them, just go straight to can they just go straight to the surgery? And I didn't want to be the Google doctor. Yeah. So I'm like, we'll just keep with the plan, and I'll just have to cry in bed more, and you know what I mean? So it was just, the one thing that came to a head was when I ended up fainting at the hotel, and then they had to take me in, and I actually ended up in went to the emergency room, and I ended up in the hospital for like 4 days. So I was like going, oh, okay, I guess I was really sick then. So, and that changed the plan a little bit. So they had took one treatment off, and then the rest of it I had for the Taxol that I had, they took it down 25% so that I can, take it better. You know, one thing I was going to ask you.
What's that? Is
because of the order they put it in, you know, it was like, the chemo and then, what do you call it?
Surgery.
Then surgery. And then, I mean, why don't they just go surgery and just...
So my understanding, and of course, I'm not an oncologist, right? But so my understanding of why they do that, so they call the chemotherapy, it's neoadjuvant therapy. You might have heard them use that term. So what they want to do is they want to shrink the tumor down, but they also want to like deactivate it. So when they found it, it was presumably like in a kind of an active growing state.
Right. Okay.
So it's
trying to make
it's trying to spread. It's trying to do its thing. It's active.
That's right. Because they don't want it to go other places, and that's right. I remember. And
so what they want to do is, and this is why chemo makes you feel so lousy, is that chemo is targeted to the active dividing cells. So that
like your hair, your nails, and
your gut lining,
right,
and the fast-growing cancer cells.
Okay.
So that's what they're targeting, is those fast-growing cancer cells.
Right, but it also gets the other stuff.
And the hair and the nails are the byproducts.
Okay.
And so they're so that's what they're targeting, and they're really trying to kill off and deactivate as much of that tumor as they can, and trying to just say, yeah, not today, tumor, right, before they go in there and then and take
Just
out
moving
as much
other-
as they can.
Right.
So it's not just a mass thing. It's like a chemical like deactivation
Got it.
thing as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
And then with the radiation, it's going in and trying to clean up the area of anything that they
May have missed or whatever.
didn't get.
Right.
Right. With
Okay.
the surgery.
They did explain all that well to me, but I think after going through like, my crybaby stage with, the not so feeling well, the thought was, like my husband was like, well, just tell them to just take it out now. And I forgot about that because they did kind of explain we're trying to deactivate as much as we can and kind of keep it here. Mm-hmm. Okay. I remember now.
Well, and it's, they're basically like kind of bringing you to the edge of death almost with chemo. And
feels like it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you feel lousy because they're starving your cells.
Right.
Right? Because they're trying to starve off that cancer. You're feeling really lousy by design.
Because I have heard where they say, to get the bad cells, the good cells, unfortunately, have to go too. Yeah. So it's like I've understood that about cancer treatment, but it was like didn't really understand what they meant. Yeah. Until now.
Well, I it's probably really simplistic. I probably don't have it entirely right.
No, that makes my brain get it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But
thanks, doctors.
Well, it's the best approach that Western medicine has up to this point, right? Hopefully, somewhere down the road they'll have something more targeted, and there are targeted therapies, but it's it's the best way that they can drop this nuclear bomb on this very active tumor.
Our congregation here really they really came together to make us feel loved and make us know that they're there for us. Like just the other day, one of the Relief Society sisters, she came with a big old she just showed up and had a big old thing of flowers and says, we just thought you might like this. And I was like crying at the front door. And they've gone and had this meal train, but they've been doing that since from when this all began with us, and they do it like twice. They do it like on a Wednesday and a Friday because they've talked with us what's best for you guys, And I said, Wednesday and Friday is probably the best day because we know we're always home. Like Monday, Tuesday we're gone to treatment, and so so they were how many months has it been now? And I've called and talked to the Relief Society president, she's the one over the women group, right? I said, it's been so long now, and we're going to be going through this all the way till July. And I said, so maybe, we could just, it's I don't want to be a burden to the Ward family and whatever. And the Relief Society president okay, I'll talk to the bishop about it because he's really adamant about we really need to, keep a pulse on you guys and just kind of, make sure that we're loving on you and everything. And I'm just like crying ugly on the phone. So until July, every Wednesday and Friday, they're going to be bringing stuff over. And I'm just like, I feel so bad. And
it's really nice to have a community that's coming through for you when your closest family is hours
not
away.
near. Yeah. And they spend money too. Cause there's some, sometimes they'll do takeout and bring it over. And then some of the takeout that they bring, I'm like going, this is barbecue from down the street. We only go there on payday, So I'm like looking at, they don't give us a receipt or nothing, but I'm like going, no. This is like a $200 meal.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, they spent their own money like that. And I'm sitting there crying and eating my barbecue ribs. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, they didn't have to do this much. I'm like, oh yeah, I told you it was a crybaby. This is too much. So it's funny how food just makes you feel loved on.
One more epi edit. I want to put a number on what Aiona just described because we talked about the opposite of this with my sister Brenda a few episodes back. What happens when a patient's network goes quiet? The research on this side of it is just as strong. Cancer patients with consistent, active social support have measurably better outcomes, lower rates of recurrence, better treatment adherence, and even improved survival, independent of the medicine itself. It's not just emotional comfort. A meal train isn't just a meal train. Structurally, it's protecting someone's ability to actually follow their treatment plan, keep her appointments, and not white-knuckle this completely alone. What Aiona's congregation is doing for her, twice a week, month after month, that's not just a nice gesture on the side of her cancer care. Clinically speaking, it is integral to her cancer care.
Everyone has a pretty good sense of humor about what we're going through. We know it's serious, but I think levity does help it. And then a little kindness does help it too. And I know they give me grace because sometimes I'm just at home. I'm just like, no patience. I'd be doing like what's the Meryl Streep when she's on have you seen The Devil Wears Prada?
Yeah.
Like there's when she's like pissed that no one's not ready. She's like, why are they not ready? I mean, she does this kind of sing-song, hella pissed kind of thing. Yeah. And I've been doing that at home, and they just look at me like, calm down, Meryl Streep. But I mean, but yeah, they point out to me, and then I point out to them when I'm being patient. I think everyone needs to know, because it's hard to know the words to comfort someone or to, I would never know what to, I have never talked to anyone prior to getting this diagnosis. Anyone that had cancer before, I wouldn't go reach out to them. You know what? I'll tell you a story.
Yes.
That's kind of, so one of these ladies in our ward, when I went to the Leahona ward, was attending the Leahona ward as a young mom, right? And there was another young mom there, and we were in youth together, and we were primary together, leadership. And we had found out she had cancer. I mean, I didn't know, found out later on that she had cancer. And then I remember, I thought, what can I do for them? What can I, and I had this great idea. You know what I could do for them? I can get a little certificate for them to all spend time to go do a mani-pedi and whatever. And so, but I never followed through, and I never did it. And then she passed away. And she was a young mom, and she had young kids too, right? Life has gone on with that family, but it brought me to tears that I didn't do anything, or I didn't say anything to be of comfort to that family while they were still on earth. And I think it's just do it, whatever little thing you're doing, or even how like the recite leadership, yeah, came over with just flowers randomly. I mean, that so made my day. But even though I did say, when y'all get me flowers, talking to my husband. But what do you call it? But it was, it's a small act, or maybe it wasn't a small, because they're gorgeous flowers. But I mean, to learn to be a comfort to someone else, specifically with cancer. Because I think for me, I kind of shied away. I don't want to be a bother to them, and I don't want to, it's like, be a bother. We love, for me, I'm speaking for me, I love when people just drop by and randomly, how are you doing? And they let me talk for hours, because I'm not used to having anyone to talk to. Mm-hmm. So just like our conversation right now, it would go all over the world and back, and but when they would leave, I'm like going, that was cool. I got to talk to someone. Besides yelling at my own family and being ungrateful for all the great things they're doing for me. But I think that's what I would want to share, is to just say, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture, you know? It could just be, you know, because I've had some ladies they just come over with some little shakes that they made because they found out that I like, you know, like smoothies.
Yeah.
Dropped off a bunch of frozen ones. And then as I need them, just, you know, defrost them. And I mean, that's something super small, you know. Actually, it was probably expensive. But I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture, $300 worth of mani-pedi. It's just, I love you and let me know anything you need. You know, that's all that needs to be, I think, when someone's going through something earth-changing as this.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anything about her cancer and what went on with her, but I mean, it seems she went so fast, you know.
Yeah.
She was, oh gosh. But I remember I was so dumb because I didn't know she was going through it. And then I had seen her, Sacramento small, so, you know, everyone knows where all the buffets were. So we went to a sushi buffet, and she was there with her, and her hair is like, kind of like, no, her hair was nicer than mine, but it's super curly.
Yeah.
And then she had on, it seemed like longer hair, and it was kind of like a straighter. And I figured it out way after, later on, I found out she was sick. It must have been a wig. And she was, you know, and I was like, girl, what you do with your hair? I love your hair. And I don't know if she thought I was trying to be silly with her, like trying to tease her about it, whatever. Yeah. But she was just, oh, we're just trying something new. And I was like, I love it. Looks cute. And then so recently, someone had said that to me. Oh, I love your hair, girl. I'm like, oh, trying something new. You know, it just kind of like.
She taught you how to like respond to that.
Yeah, I kind of. She helped me off, and thank you. But yeah, lots of education, and that, and I think just a lot of love.
What are the three biggest things that you've taken away from this experience?
I think the number one thing is that health is wealth, right? First and foremost, and it's kind of like, from my understanding, what I've noticed my whole life, I'm a card-carrying Tongan, is that we kind of take it for granted. We almost, you know, like eating crazy is almost a joke to us. Like, psh, who cares? We are strong people, like physically big and strong people. So we almost take it for granted that, you know, the health is our wealth. Do you know what I mean? I think that's number one. Number two, I think, I don't know, it's one of them is, another one is like the blame game, and like the you know, oh yeah, that's because, you know, she got that because whatever she did in the past, and that's what it's coming to her. The Lord's letting her know now all of her wrongs that she did. And that could be just a me thing that you know what I mean, that I've given, but I feel like I've heard it in conversations. We know it's not correct, but I mean, I think it's just a mean-spirited thing that we really should get away with, you know? And then just kind of, and I think it's just hard because we're not educated on anything about cancer or what it is or what causes it or whatever. The third one is, it's still the education piece, you know, where what can we do to lessen this thing, cancer? You know what I mean? What can we do to be proactive in lessening cancer? You know, we have to know what the fight is, you know. Like I was saying, like I didn't know just being obese, that's a big contribution to you might be getting cancer. And maybe people do it, but I mean, I think I don't know of any like community groups that talk specifically about Polynesian community groups that talk specifically about cancer only. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of I know of one that I've been involved with before, TOFA of Sacramento. They kind of try to touch everything from politics to like diabetes to, getting, education on getting your citizenship. I'm sure there are other groups that are doing the good work. And I was surprised how many different things are, and then like that offer education. And I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel on this. It's just reach out to these groups that know how to do that and invite them into our Polynesian groups and even church congregations that already exist, and then you have to kind of bring it in that way. It's a lot of work because I've, in my work with TOFA of Sacramento, it's like, and I've always done really small kinds of stuff with them, but I mean, it's a lot of work. It's going to have to be, someone has to head it up, and then really bring that in because it's an important piece for our people, to not joke around with our lives.
That's our episode title, and it's Aiona's phrase, not mine. Health is wealth. A few numbers before we go, because I promised real ones in this one. Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders are about 0.4% of the U.S. population, and until very recently, the data that would have shown their cancer risk was buried inside a much bigger Asian American category that didn't reflect their reality at all. Breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death for Samoan, Guamanian, and Filipino women. Tongan women specifically survive breast cancer at meaningfully lower rates than white women, not because the disease behaves differently, but because of exactly the gaps in education, access, and community conversation that Aiona just spent this episode describing to me. She didn't come on this show to get sympathy. She came on to ask her own community directly to stop treating a cancer diagnosis like a verdict on someone's character and to start treating it like the solvable, survivable, and deeply common medical event that it actually is. Aiona, thank you for trusting me with this after 34 years of not being in the same room. I love you, and I'm so grateful to be able to partner with you to share this message. You can find show notes, sources, and links at changedbycancer.com. And if this is the first time you're hearing the term the Epi Edit, that's a new feature of this show. There will also be standalone episodes where I go deeper into the epidemiology, the policy, and the data behind what you hear from our guests. The first two standalone episodes of the Epi Edit drop July 8th. Subscribe, leave a review, and I'll catch you on the next episode.